Good evening and welcome to the 6th installment of our Internet Forum public lecture series. We are kind of a little bit over the halfway point at this point, but I hope you are still having fun with the course. Today, our first speaker is Aleksi Sintonen. Aleksi, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Aleksi, and I'm here today to talk about the cryptocurrencies and their use in criminal activities. First of all, I want to mention that it's only a small portion of all the cryptocurrencies used, which is used in criminal activities. But still, it's good to be aware of these specific facts. I have a background from economic crime investigations and criminal intelligence analysis, and right now I'm working in Financial Intelligence Unit, which is located in National Bureau of Investigation. And Financial Intelligence Unit, what is the purpose of it? The mission is to prevent, detect and investigate money laundering and terrorism financing. And we are cooperating with the national and international authorities, as well as with the reporting entities. These are, for example, banks and payment service providers and other service providers who are doing reports of suspicious transactions in their businesses. The virtual asset team, it is located in our unit, and they are conducting their own case investigations related to crypto assets, and they are also giving support to other authorities. They are also developing the tools and expertise used in crypto-related investigations. Today's agenda. So let's check the basic facts of cryptocurrency. I'm quite sure most of you know the basic facts, but for those who are not so familiar with the cryptocurrencies, let's check them. Then let's move into the criminal activities related to cryptocurrencies. Then let's check how law enforcement can address these challenges. And lastly, what the future looks like. So I'm going to approach with the legal definition of virtual currencies and then cryptocurrencies. So we are talking about virtual currencies when the currency is not issued by any centralized authority. So it's a private currency. And a person can use it as a payment method, and it can be used fully digitally. So it's a digital currency. These three criteria need to be fulfilled so we can talk about virtual currency legally. And what about cryptocurrency? When virtual currencies are utilizing some cryptographic technology, such as blockchains, then we can talk about cryptocurrencies. This cryptographic technology is giving some additional security and immutability for this innovation. So you can't counterfeit the currency because the transaction history is saved into the blockchain. Okay, the first common blockchain technology innovation is the Bitcoin, which is the most valuable right now. And Bitcoin is also utilizing blockchain technology. So the blockchain is publicly reviewable ledger. All the transactions are saved to that ledger, and everyone can see the history of the transactions publicly. Here we can see one example website, which is blockchain.com. If you know the wallet address, you can see all the transactions it has been involved in. You can see the balance of the wallet address, etc. There are numerous different websites where you can explore the blockchain freely. Here we can see then the most valuable cryptocurrencies few weeks back then. So right away we have over 20,000 different cryptocurrencies in circulating. And the Bitcoin is the most valuable, as I said. It's approximately 1/3 of all market capitalization of the cryptocurrencies. Maybe at this point I could mention also one type of cryptocurrencies, the private coins. I'm not sure if you have heard about Monero, which is one of the most common private coin, but how it's different from the Bitcoin. When the Bitcoin is using publicly reviewable ledger, the blockchain, Monero is making it harder to see the transaction data, the transaction history. They are using ring signatures and stealth addresses, so it's not that easy to see the transaction data. So it's a little bit different innovation from the Bitcoin. And I will come back to this later. Okay, there's decentralization, which is the baseline of blockchain. It is both an advantage and a challenge. We can think about countries which are trying to control their citizens arbitrarily. These kind of technologies and innovations can provide help for the citizens, so the government can't control all of their life. The same thing is if the countries, such as developing countries, which not necessarily have well-organized systems, like in financing or in registries, this can provide help. I can give you an example from Haiti. 2010, a huge earthquake occurred, and it was very hard to organize the reconstruction of Haiti because their land registry was so corrupted and fraudulent, so it was not able to get the land rights from the registry. And this was poorly organized, centralized registry. So here is another example how the decentralized systems can help in some points. At the same time, these innovations are providing help for criminals also to hide their traces. Of course, the fact that you can see all the transactions from the blockchain, it's not necessarily good for criminals also, because at some extent, it's even easier to trace criminal assets when one is using blockchain. If we are comparing it to fiat currencies like euros or dollars, at some extent, it can be even harder to trace fiat currencies. But it depends how you're using it. Okay, so how much cryptocurrencies are involved in criminal activities? Well, I can't say you the exact estimate about it, because it's very hard to estimate. We have so many different cryptocurrencies, the trading volumes are so huge, and the picture is very fragmented worldwide. Some estimates are that only under 1% of cryptocurrencies used are involved in criminal activities. Some estimates are more. For example, Chainalysis estimated that last year it was $14 billion US dollars, which illegal addresses received cryptocurrencies. So the portion can be very small from all the cryptocurrencies used, but it's still huge because the usage of cryptocurrencies have been increasing all the time. But all in all, the most of the cryptocurrencies used, they are used in legal purposes. and it's only a small portion involved in criminal activities. Let's dive into the different methods criminals are utilizing these technologies. Maybe the most obvious one is using it as a payment method in criminal cases. Some of you may have been heard about these darknet markets, such Alphabay or Silk Road. We had also Silkkitie in Finland, which was shut down in 2019. The darknet markets are the platforms where you can buy basically anything, from drugs to criminal services like malware or some cyber attacks. And most of them are using cryptocurrencies as a payment method. Bitcoin and Monero are the most common ones in these darknet markets. But at the same time, the Silkkitie, which was shut down a few years ago, thousands of criminal investigations were conducted, and in many of them, the tracing of cryptocurrencies were one of the most important lead to sort out the investigations. So once again, it may not be the best option for criminals. Depends how you use it. As well as CAM sites, which stands for Child Abusive Material, they are utilizing cryptocurrencies as a payment method. Dark scandals, welcome to video. These are few of the largest ones which have been shut down. But once again, here, the shutting down was partly possible because of the use of cryptocurrencies and because of the tracing of these publicly reviewable ledgers, the blockchains. Secondly, you can utilize cryptocurrencies in money laundering with numerous different ways. Overall, the money laundering requires some initial crime. It can be drug trade, it can be some economic crime like tax fraud, it can be some other kinds of frauds where you can yield some criminal benefits. And then you want to convert these criminal benefits to look like legal assets. And cryptocurrencies are providing one additional layer to your money laundering scheme. So you can convert your regular assets into cryptocurrencies. You can convert cryptocurrencies into other cryptocurrencies when we are talking about chain hopping. Then you can convert these cryptocurrencies back into regular assets, and then it's possible that they might look like legal assets. For example, mixers, which are services which are used to mix different streams of cryptocurrencies together, and the purpose is to hide the trace, to remove the audit trail from the original address to the end address. These are used in different kind of criminal services, like in darknet markets, they are using some kind of mixers. But still, when you are using mixer, it's still possible to trace the audit trail from the original address to the end address. You can use crypto casinos, you can launder your money in them, you can exchange private keys with other people, you can use money mules, you can try to convert different assets to cryptocurrencies and back, like real property, like cars, etc. You name it. So only your imagination is limiting the possibilities. But once again, these are just one additional layer. Money laundering are conducted with numerous different ways, and cryptocurrencies are just one small portion you can use in your schemes. Investment scams, these are the ones I could say is the most important one right now, because they have been growing from year to year and they are still increasing exponentially. I think because of this new exciting technology and innovations, blockchains and cryptocurrencies, now the criminals can utilize psychological biases very well. We can see the age distribution here about the victims of investment scams in Finland. We can see that it's not only the older people. Maybe previously a large portion of victims of different scams were older people, but today also younger people are victims of these kinds of scams. So the fraudsters are utilizing this modern technology and these modern innovations where the youngsters are excited. So I think this is the fact that, for example, companies providing payment services and banks should know in their actions that we also need to protect the consumers from the younger age groups. Last year in Finland, there were identified approximately 530 investment scams, and most of these were related to cryptocurrencies. Approximately 21 million euros was the criminal benefits in these scams. And maybe one of the most common one was the OneCoin in 2016, which yielded approximately $4 billion of criminal benefits. And there were also 25,000 Finnish citizens who were victims in this scam, and they lost approximately 40 million euros. So they are quite large amounts of money. A few years back then, it was identified that approximately 80% of all ICOs, which stands for initial coin offerings, when new coins are issued, 80% of these were identified as scams. And I think one way to address this challenge is machine learning. These two guys found out in their last year's paper that over 80% of all investment scams were being able to identify. So this can be one answer to this challenge. And lastly, also terrorists are utilizing these cryptocurrencies in their fundraising. For example, Al-Qassam Brigade, which is the military wing of Hamas, they have been conducted several fundraising campaigns, and they collected assets for terrorist attacks via cryptocurrencies. Also, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, they have all utilized these. But still, the largest part of their fundraising is still conducted through their regular assets, like fiat currencies and other kinds of assets. But this shows that all kinds of entities are utilizing these. Okay, how law enforcement are addressing these challenges? Worldwide, authorities have very good competence and tools to investigate these crypto-related cases because of this publicly reviewable ledger, the blockchain. It is a good starting point to start investigations, and in many occasions, it has been the main lead to sort out the case. Of course, the complex schemes, they are still hard to investigate, like any other complex schemes without cryptocurrencies. But with good cooperation with international cooperatives, it's possible to solve these cases. For example, our unit's virtual asset team, they have very high level knowledge and very good tools to investigate these cases. And they are developing these tools all the time. This theme requires it because it's so fast evolving. Here we have some most recent cases, the Silkkitie, which I mentioned earlier, and the Vastaamo case, which was this huge ransomware case. In both of these, the cryptocurrencies, the tracing of the blockchain was conducted and it was utilized in the investigations. Okay, what the future looks like. Because this field is constantly evolving in a very fast pace, we are having a lot of new entities, new actors on this field. How new companies are operating with their anti-money laundering, how they are doing their know your customer regulations. This is one main topic right now, what regulators are talking about. Yeah, regulation is one key, but of course, we can't just rely on putting more and more regulation. It depends how we utilize it and how we can still keep it possible to utilize these new technologies without restricting them too much. It's balancing with them. I think regulation technology is one key to address these challenges. So we are using these same technologies to address the challenges they are bringing up. We have Chainalysis, we have CipherTrace, we have Elliptic. These are the main companies in cryptocurrency, blockchain forensics. And they are providing their expertise to other companies. They are providing their expertise to authorities. And I think this is one of the most important solutions to share the knowledge and share the expertise and tools to each other and think how we can use the same technology to address the problems. For example, Chainalysis has this new tool called Oracle, which is used by other companies to see if the cryptocurrency address is related to any illegal activities. It is utilizing smart contracts in blockchains. I see that blockchain in itself can be a problem-solving technology. So I can give you example from food industry. Food industry has very large supply chains, and food frauds are one very large field of different frauds. They are yielding criminal benefits 30 billion euros per year. And in Europe, it's 10 billion euros per year. For example, olive oil, which is a target of food frauds. If we can save all the steps it takes in supply chain into the blockchain with the smart contracts, this can be one way to authenticate the supply chain and prevent the fraudulent actions. The same thing is with some very expensive objectives, some investment instruments, some valuables. If we can bind their value with the smart contracts and we can authenticate the origin of them. This is one way to prevent counterfeits. So I think there is a lot of possibilities also in these technologies. But once again, it's not possible to entirely prevent all the crimes or prevent that criminals are not using these new innovations. We just need to find the certain the good enough level of prevention and innovations. And like I said about the investment scams, raising awareness among the consumers, among the investors, among the service providers, it is one very important key to prevent these scams. Because of the decentralized systems, I think also there is a need for responsibility of their users. So the users of these innovations have to be enough knowledge how they are working. And everyone can check the most common red flags of these, what are related to these investment scams. If you are having too unrealistic claims, if you don't find any background information of these projects or new ICOs, then maybe you should be careful. Like in any decision-making processes, the same stands with here. Okay, here are the conclusion slide. I think I will leave it here and feel free to ask any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Aleksi. I can see that we have a couple of questions from the online audience. Have you seen any trends regarding the use of crypto in illegal activities in relation to the fluctuation of crypto prices and or the stock market?
Well, when it comes to, for example, darknet markets, in many darknet markets, the prices are in fiat currency. They are expressed in fiat currency like euros or dollars. And cryptocurrencies are only the way to, from these regular assets to launder your money and back then. So when the stock market, when the crypto prices are going up and down, it depends if you are a buyer or a seller of these illegal products. Then you need to think when you are buying and when you are selling. But in overall, I think criminals are using the cryptocurrencies only to transfer their values, assets, quickly to the place to other, and maybe not storing their value in cryptocurrencies. So that's why I think it's not that important part of criminal use. There are some estimates that if the prices of cryptocurrencies are falling down on very low levels, then the criminal use is going to be way more lower. But I'm not that sure about it, because it is just used to transfer the value quickly.
Thank you. And then there's another question from online. Does cryptocurrency money laundering provide a better yield than traditional types of money laundering?
That is a very interesting question. Once again, it depends how you are utilizing it. I think I don't have exact answer for this one. One thing relating to this question is these criminal services I mentioned, which are sold in these darknet markets. So some criminals are selling these money laundering as a service products in the darknet markets. So they are laundering your dirty money with specific sum of currencies. So I don't have statistical information about this, how much these service providers are taking payment from these services. But yeah, very good question. Maybe we can come back to that later.
Yeah, sure. And I see we have a question here. Please wait for the microphone.
Hi. I don't know if it's like exactly related to what you just told, but there's a lot of talk that's going on about digital national centralized cryptocurrencies that are being developed by governments individually, and that might be implemented in the future. How do you think that would affect the decentralized nature of the cryptocurrencies we have right now? And do you think that would change the nature of your job? As in, would governments make these decentralized currencies illegal to be operated in those countries or internationally? How would you think that would impact? Thank you.
Yeah, that's one possible developing when we are talking about if these centralized digital currencies are issued. Then it's possible that, well, we have seen it in some countries where the cryptocurrencies are tried to make illegal as a whole. So maybe I'm not the right person to answer how it will go, for example, in European countries, if we are issuing some centralized digital currencies, how it is affecting the markets of other decentralized currencies. I don't find that plausible that all the other cryptocurrencies are going to be illegal then.
Thank you. And I don't see any other questions. So thank you once again, Aleksi. And our next speaker is Kari Aho.
Thank you.
Okay. Good late afternoon or early evening. As said, my name is Kari Aho. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a Finnish company called Secapp. And next we are gonna go from a cryptocurrency world to a crisis communications and a technology that has been especially built for very critical use cases, and we are gonna cover that from by using several actual examples of different incidents, different crises, and different use cases, which have also helped us to build the platform. And this is kind of our journey at the same time. And the basic idea here is to inspire you to kind of look through crises from different perspectives, and especially focusing on what even a single second can mean in terms when we have a crisis, when we have an incident, when someone's lives are in danger. But as the lecture series is called Technology, Security and Future for all of us, let's start from the technology and security aspect. If we consider crises in terms of IT security, IT systems failures, those can be very, very costly. According to Gartner and IBM, based on their latest survey, even an average IT downtime, when a system is down, it's not available for use, that will cost 5,750 euros per each minute. Again, the response to those incidents, to be able to resolve those situations, it's a matter of seconds. It's not a matter of minutes. It's not a matter of hours. We need to be able to respond to those as fast as possible. And to put that into perspective, that if I'm going to be talking here 30 minutes, and if our company would have a major failure and no one could reach me, that could, according to these calculations, cost more than 172,000 euros in different liabilities, lost business opportunities, lost clients, and so forth. The average cost of data breach globally is 3.9 million. Huge amount of money. And again, that puts us into in a situation that we need to do 2 or 3 things at minimum. We need to be able to prepare for this beforehand. We need to be able to react to them. And of course, we need to recover from them as fast as possible to minimize the damages caused by those. But as a summary, again, every second matters in terms of technology, in terms of security. Before continuing into how we have tackled these situations, a few words about my personal background. I'm originally from central Finland, and I've done my PhD at the time. I was working with companies like Nokia, European Space Agency, and a number of other leading communication providers and developers, and did my PhD on different communication technologies, how we can build them as future-proof, secure, and as robust as possible. And after I did my PhD, we started looking into how we can put those same ideas into a platform that would help our critical organizations to respond into these emergencies as fast as possible. We have now 10 years of background, a bit more actually, on building the platform, building a communication and alerting platform, especially built for crises. We started the work with our customers, with our future and potential customers. We started to work with fire and rescue officials in Finland, with police, with healthcare organizations, with pharmaceuticals, with schools and private organizations alike. And the first thing that we did is that we looked into these different crises that these organizations face even from daily basis, but especially from a large-scale perspective. And there were kind of 3 main topics that we noticed. First of which, the communication was kind of challenging. There were so many different devices, different communication tools to be used that some of the participants in the early on, they said that they need to have 7 different devices to be able to manage a single crisis. And if you consider that you have 7 different devices, can you guess how many seconds or minutes or even hours you need to spend on using those different devices to actually coordinate the situation? So it's not very efficient. So that was one problem we needed to solve. We needed to start looking how technology can actually help in that problem. The second is that the first one is dealing with very operative thing. It's dealing with communicating with people, but something that happens before that is that we need to be prepared for a number of different incidents. And what was the key problem, why we need to do that, is that when we have a crisis, when we have an emergency, there's a lot of stress involved in that situation. And that makes it very prone to human errors. Even though you would practice it 10 times over, still when the situation happens, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure put on you, and you might simply forget to do something. You might simply forget to instruct something. You might simply forgot to do something that would be very, very important to make sure that you recover from the crisis. And in the worst case, that can mean that single mistake can mean the loss of someone's life. So we needed to build something that can be done when there's time to do that. So how you can prepare for these situations. We needed to build means to actually combine these different communication tools into a single platform, so that people don't need to spend time on juggling different devices and so forth. And finally, of course, prepare using the technologies. One thing was also that the platform, of course, needed to be robust, but more importantly, we needed to find a way to actually capture people's attention. Meaning that, especially nowadays, you have your consumer communication apps, you have emails, you have your workplace communication, you have TV, radio, and so forth. You have so many different means that people can communicate with you that has ended up in a situation that we are living kind of in a hyper-connected world, and you need to somehow push through that. So when there's an emergency, you need to capture the attention. So that means in practice you need to bypass silent settings at the devices, because personally, for instance, myself, I keep my phone constantly on a do not disturb mode, because there's so many different notifications and so forth coming through constantly, and I need to have a way, something to go through the noise when needed. So those three were kind of the main things that we started already back 10 years ago to tackle with. So building tools for preparedness, building a platform that can connect different technologies and devices, and capturing the attention of the individuals in order to create better preparedness and tools for managing crises, of course saving lives. And while doing that, also try to build a platform that can serve also in daily operations. And the reason for it being available for daily operations and any technology that you employ for critical use, you should be able to use it as much as possible in daily operations, because then the people will know how to use it. If you just use it as a kind of a practice platform, or in live situations, in a big crisis, there's a big risk again that people don't know how to use it, they are afraid to use it, and so forth. So a key thing also is that you have a balance between daily operational use as well as the crisis and incident use. So what are if you are considering the kind of the crisis use cases and where those every second matters, those are kind of extraordinary phenomenons in a bad sense. They are security threats, school shootings as a one example. That's a terrible, terrible thing. But if someone breaks into these premises, what to do, how to contact with all of the members of the faculty, how to get the information to visiting lecturers, how to get the information to students, janitors, cafeteria people, and so forth and so forth. So how we can actually get the information, how we can protect ourselves, how we can respond to that situation. Unfortunately, also civil unrest is something that has raised kind of its head in a number of different countries, and of course the situation with the war and economical situation, energy crisis, and so forth. Those kind of polarize the situation even further, and they can cause a lot of unrest to which we need to be again prepared on a different levels and be able to respond to those. Of course, we do have other accidents, incidents ranging from fires to medical emergencies and all the way to oil spills and chemical leaks and so forth. While at the same time, those are more of a kind of a human cost, but we are also facing more and more situations that are caused by extreme weather conditions, whether they are from solar storms to tsunamis or earthquakes and so forth. Those are getting more and more frequent, and that puts a lot of pressure towards fire and rescue authorities, healthcare providers, and private organizations alike. Everybody knows about the pandemics. We've been through that for the past couple of years. How to provide official instructions, what to do, how to respond when there is someone in need of help, and so forth. Again, dealing with being prepared, being able to respond. Lack of resources with a lot of these different organizations that need to keep our society safe is very huge problem, and it's getting bigger and bigger at constantly. We don't have enough trained individuals to provide care at the healthcare facilities, whether they are hospitals or whether they are home care or elderly care. And that again puts a lot of stress in terms of how can we actually make sure that with the fairly scarce resources that we have available, how we can use them most efficiently, how we can communicate and coordinate the situations in a manner that we can and we will respond into these different emergencies as fast as possible and recover from them. The crises can contain equipment and infrastructure failures. If you consider an elevator, which might be a very, very common thing, if an elevator breaks down here, it probably doesn't cause too much problems. It can be even considered positive to some extent, increasing health benefits, people taking stairs. But if you consider an elevator breaking up in a hospital, that can again mean that someone loses their lives. If you can't transfer the patient to an operational room, that can make a huge difference, and you need to be able to respond to these kind of situations. IT systems failures we covered. They were costing thousands and thousands of euros per minute. We need to be prepared. And of course, again, there are different levels of systems which can cause even catastrophic situations if they are not available, if they are not in use. And we need to find ways to actually move into backup systems and so forth. And of course, on the background, we have all of the utilities. We do have the power, water, telecom, and so forth, all of the kind of the necessities our societies work nowadays. And again, we need to be prepared if we have power outage, whether it's planned or unexpected. We need to be able to react into that. And we need to make sure that we can actually reach those individuals needed when something happens. So if you consider these examples, there are, of course, a lot more. You can probably easily understand that in the response into these situations means, again, that every second is important, because they are dealing with people's lives, property damages, asset damages, infrastructure failures, and they can even in the worst and biggest scope, they can even to affect to political agendas, governance, and different things. If situations escalate and we are not able to respond and contain them and make sure that people are safe, we do have a lot of problems at our hand. Well, I started by telling what we started doing with what were the main problems when we started back already back 10 years ago. I mentioned that the preparedness, we need to do things beforehand. So we need to have the instructions beforehand what to do when these different incidents happen. We need to have means and knowledge how we can reach individuals when something happens. And we need to make sure that we can do that as fast as possible. One practical example happened back in 2020 related into this scenario. Finland had its first kind of a nuclear accident, which they were managed to contain, but what happened there was that it caused an emergency shutdown at the reactor because it malfunctioned, and we were lucky enough to be able to help in that scenario. So there were two things: the Radiation and Nuclear Safety Authority had our communication platform in use, so they had already prepared for if something happens, what they need to do. And they had Secapp in use there to react. So 3 minutes to 1 o'clock during the afternoon, the Radiation Safety Authority got the notification that there's an emergency at the nuclear plant. Immediately they sent the alert, and the alert went to more than 200 different people, ranging from the top management to all the way to the operational staff. And a few minutes later, they had already assembled a response team coordinating activities, what they need to do. And luckily for all of us, they were able to create necessary measures to contain the situation. Everything didn't go perfectly. It rarely does, but they were able to respond and recover from that situation. From a platform perspective, what they did, as I said, they had prepared into this. I mentioned earlier that one key thing, what we did early on, was that we built the platform so that it can combine all of these different communication technologies, whether they are smartphone applications, whether they are automated calls, SMS messages, emails, browser use, and so forth, into a single platform. So when this emergency happened, what they needed to do was simply put a few clicks in the system and the alert went out. It went through multiple different channels. It bypassed silence settings, and it actually got also the newspaper kind of topics later on. Their people were saying that the alert was so loud that they couldn't ignore it, even though what they were at the moment doing, and they were able to respond into that. So it's very important so kind of a lesson learned from the technology's perspective is that try not to kind of build up solutions that would build something completely different, isolated, and so forth, but rather than try to combine what are the existing means of doing things and let people use them, but provide alternatives. Of course, you can provide a lot of intelligence, for instance, using applications, but there are always people that don't adapt using the newest technologies at the same time. So that it's very important to, when building solutions, especially for critical use, try to build it so that it provides means to adopt the existing technologies into it as well. Well, actually two major situations happened back in 2018. So if we go back a few years from the nuclear accident in Kuopio region in Finland, they had first they had a major bus accident. There were, roughly speaking, 20 people injured. Unfortunately, 4 people got killed in that situation, but that caused a large-scale emergency at the hospital, at the university hospital, one of the leading hospitals in Finland, where they needed to start coordinating their activities. Within their hospital, they needed to raise the level of kind of emergency and put teams into place, different trauma teams, people that are taking the patients in, and so forth. And they were kind of also, in addition to the kind of controlling and coordinating what happens within the hospital with different teams and units and so forth, they needed to communicate with the people already before they arrived at the hospital. So with the ambulances and the field workers and the ambulance workers, first responders, and so forth, that to get information how to make sure that the priorities are correct when they arrive at the hospital. As said, unfortunately, there were loss of lives, but the leading neurophysician at the hospital said that, well, without having the efficient means of communication, without having the means of reaching these different teams and individuals and building kind of a situational awareness as well, what is happening, who can do what, it could have caused even more casualties. It could have caused people's lives getting lost. The other unfortunate incident, was the attack to a local school during the same year. What was different there compared to the previous one? Both of them were kind of large-scale accidents. A lot of people got injured and so forth. The difference here was that in addition to the hospital that was also, again, using Secapp, and they were able to, again, communicate and so forth with necessary teams and individuals. Within the school as well, they had Secapp in use in their own operations, so they could use that as well to communicate with the faculty and coordinate what needs to be done. So if you kind of consider the lessons learned from here, the different stakeholders, they have kind of different responsibilities and how they need to coordinate. Why, for instance, while at the hospital, they need to prepare their units and the care procedures and so forth, whereas with the school, they need to prepare how to protect them from the attacker, how to provide information to the authorities and so forth, and get people to safety. So they have different activities, but the common thing is that they need means of communicating and knowing how to reach individuals in these situations. And if we consider and translate that, the people's lives are, of course, the most important thing. And roughly speaking, if we consider people coming into kind of emergency care, there's roughly 70, for the serious kind of situations, there's roughly a 70% of people that actually make it. But if you consider and translate that from the people that actually make it into costs, so how much the patient care costs, that's according to a study done a few years back called the Finaki study in Finland. The average cost for emergency care patient was roughly speaking 45,000 euros And that combines from the emergency care treatment to the aftercare. And one of our hospital clients, they said that before, related to the emergency care, they said that before they were kind of taking our solution into use, it took 5 to 10 minutes for them to actually get hold of people, to assemble the team, start doing things. When they took Secapp into use, that was reduced to a matter of seconds when they actually had the team in place. So if you consider reducing that time to just respond to the situation and being able to care the actual patients, this is translated directly to the patient care. So it can help to save someone's lives. It can reduce the overall cost during the long run if you consider the total cost of patient care and so forth. So roughly speaking, we are talking about tens of % of improvement also in terms of the likelihood that the patient survives the situation, but also how much aftercare the patient needs and so forth. So very important, again, very important to be able to assemble teams when needed as fast as possible, being able to communicate with them, utilizing different technologies and means to do that. So one example of that. Well, this is probably something that we're going to face, every single one of us, during this winter. We're going to see unprecedented, during our lifetimes, at least mine, electricity failures, plant outages, or at least very, very high cost of electricity. And again, huge kind of a crisis. Well, if you consider that and put it into a simple examples, if we consider a commercial kitchen that gets out of electricity for an extended period of time, that again can translate into a lot of cost by just simply spoiled food. But if you put that into perspective, that we have very critical production facilities, communication providers, telecom operators, and so forth, if they are out of power without being able to prepare or respond into these, to put on emergency powers, reserve powers, coordinated activities, we are going to face a lot of problems during this winter. So, key takeaway, prepare beforehand. Know who to contact, how to target the communication, what kind of people you need in certain situation. Do you need management? Do you need technical teams? Do you need medical help and so forth? So being able to target the communication and know who to contact, know how to contact. So who you can reach through SMS, who you can reach through automated calls, who you can reach through the applications and so forth, or take a platform into use that does that for you. But anyway, know how to reach those individuals when needed. Try to eliminate human errors when these situations happens. So you can do that creating kind of different sheets or templates of instructions what to do. If you have them on paper, that's good enough. It's something. But again, if you have appropriate tools that have those available, where you just need to select that, all right, now we have this situation at hand, and it will do that automatically. That's always better. And of course, also to reduce the human work in these situations. So if you can introduce some kind of automation, and also that automation can help to reduce the human errors. So if you automate in terms of conserving energy, for instance, if you create an automation that every night at certain, or every evening at certain time, there would be an automated message to all of the employees to turn off all electrical assets and facilities and so forth, to conserve the power that they are not on during the night if they are needed. And of course, probably a lot of you are thinking that we can do that with consumer apps, whether it's Signal, whether it's WhatsApp or something else. Yeah, you can, and it's better to use them than not to have anything. But there are a lot of security aspects related into those. For instance, WhatsApp, for instance, when you download that, it shares your contact details with their servers, and they, based on their rules within the platform, they can use them in the various different ways, from marketing to other activities. So, and of course, there are a lot of problems if you're considering very critical organization using, for instance, these consumer apps. You have no way of controlling who will be added to a certain chat, for instance. So there might be ex-employees, there might be people with the same name added by accident to those chats, and then very sensitive information can be leaked to someone that should not have that. One example was actually from Sweden a number of years ago. Luckily, they were using WhatsApp in certain of their operations. One of the task force members added a person that he actually thought that the person that he added was a member of the task force, but no, the person was just the same name in his address book, and he was a school teacher that then leaked that, all right, the tactical team is using WhatsApp for coordinating their operations, and you can imagine how well that was taken by the media and all of that. Again, another example, we've been gone through kind of from different angles related to very critical organizations like healthcare, energy provision, and so forth. But there are a lot of things happening also in the private sector, and here's one example of that. This is a shopping center chain, if you will, called Citycon, and for instance, in Helsinki or capital area, they have shopping center called Iso Omena. Throughout the Nordics, they have, roughly speaking, 40 different shopping centers, and in each of these shopping centers, they have hundreds of different tenants, different kind of shops within them. They have restaurants, they have maintenance, they have security, and so forth. So this is again a situation that how to actually communicate within a single shopping center, but moreover, they have also situations where at the same time all of these different shopping centers are facing some kind of threats. So they need to be able to kind of communicate with all of these shopping centers simultaneously in the worst case, but at the minimum, they need to be able to coordinate if there's a fire alarm, if there's a water damage, if there's any daily situation ongoing within that single shopping center. They need to be able to communicate with the tenants. They need to be able to communicate with the management, security, and so forth. So again, combining the communication and more important, what is also important, and this could be a very useful tool to evaluate different crises. So they are using also Secapp to actually make decisions if they have a crisis. So how to manage the PR, kind of external communication, how to convey information related to that situation, but also to decide best course of actions. So they call this virtual crisis room, which they are using, and Secapp is supporting that with kind of from an operational perspective, from the communication platform. So how to manage the internal communications, but when they are facing these situations, they start from looking at it from 4 different aspects. So what are the facts that they currently know? What are the confirmed ones, and what are they suspecting that has happened? What are the assumptions? Where the situation is going to lead to? What is the worst case scenario? What is the likely scenario? What's the best case scenario? What are the actions that they have already done? What they will do next, and what they will do later on? And as said, how they will do the communication internally and both externally. So this is kind of their tool to form a situational awareness related to the crisis, and they do this periodically. So they have periodic meetings where they go through all of these 4 aspects and decide the next course of actions. You can do this with PowerPoint, obviously, but if you want to share this, the Secapp, again, what we've done, as said, it's also a third element. What we've done there is basically you can use your personal devices actually to collect and share this kind of information. So we call this kind of a mobile checklists. So it provides the documentation aspect for these crises. So whereas before we talked about preparedness, communication, and now we're talking about documentation. So that's one extension of the evolution of the platform throughout the years. And the final example that I'm going to share with you, again, this is kind of a multi-stakeholder situation from kind of from a large-scale accident, but this was or emergency. This was very, very unfortunate, very bad situation. But what happened here, that was an unprecedented kind of a cooperation that was done in Finland. The border authorities, fire and rescue workers, volunteers, and defense forces, they worked jointly during 2021 when there were these wildfires going around in Kalajoki area, Finland, for almost 2 weeks. So you can imagine how much strain that put onto these different organizations to tackle with a massive situation that raged for a couple weeks. Altogether, 1,500 different people took part into tackling the situation, and the Fire and Rescue Authority was in charge of getting the people alerted, again coordinated, and so forth. And well, they said that Secapp was the only way that they could actually reach all of the necessary units and individuals in this situation, and being able to respond and share information when needed. So again, it's also is not just internal, it's not just your organization, but you need to have means to collaboration on different levels. And an example of kind of putting that into perspective from different levels. Here's one example of how you can consider the preparedness and communication, different technologies from an individual level. So if you are an employee, worker, rescue personnel, and so forth, you need to have a safe and secure environment where you can work. You need to have means to receive the communication, to send the communication. on a unit level, you need to be able to coordinate different groups, of course, individuals as well. You need to guarantee that the unit works as supposed to. And from that, when you go on a central level, you need to make sure that these different units work and so forth. And if you continue from that to a national level, you need to make sure that you can coordinate all of the national level and regional organizations. And all of these need to take into account that we need to make sure that everything is secure. Of course, this can be very sensitive information. We need to be able to reach the on-duty but also off-duty people when needed, create quickly situational awareness. We need to be able to save the time to help to save the lives instead of kind of focusing on putting the time into using tools and so forth. So the tool use needs to be as automated as possible. And you need to be able to go beyond your own organizational borders when needed. So this is kind of a summary that I wanted to share with you, what we've been covering today, what we have been doing for the past 10 years in terms of technology. We went through this through different examples, how we can build the preparedness, creating the templates, having the people's contact details, having the group or even location information when needed. So we have all of the tools when we need to respond that we can use to coordinate that situation. We need to have means to alert and communicate with individuals, whether they are using computers or personal devices or authority devices. We need to have means to reach even large groups of people to keep them informed and to know what to do. We need to have secure environments for exchanging information with these different stakeholders while keeping people safe, while documenting what has been done so we can improve what we can do in the future and so forth. Our story currently is in a place that we have, in addition to Finland where we started, we have now operations in 15 different countries all around the world. And again, even though we are providing the platform as a kind of a service, it has been localized to a certain region. So in the Nordics, we have a kind of own dedicated environment, whereas in the other parts of the world, we have their own environments. But currently, we've been lucky enough during the past 12 months or so to be able to deliver over 10 million different alerts. And even if there would be only a single alert that has saved someone's lives, I know that we've done something good. But I know that unfortunately there has been more and more situations where these alerts have been used to respond to very serious emergencies, and do that, hopefully, we've saved a lot more lives through using technology built for these kind of use cases. So, as a summary, every second matters. And now, if you have some questions or comments, I will be more than happy to respond to those.
Thank you, Kari. It seems that we do indeed have some questions from the online audience. Actually, a set of questions in one comment. How do you see the evolution of emergency alerting with 5G and eventually 6G?
It's a good question. I think it provides more resiliency, more robustness to it. So definitely an improvement. It can provide kind of to challenges some extent if you're considering that those technologies will provide a lot more opportunities also. So where you can start considering how you will employ IoT, artificial intelligence, real-time communications, and so forth, with a lot more stakeholders. But those are kind of a positive things. I believe that it will definitely help us in a lot of aspects.
And what are the key availability concerns or challenges for end-to-end alerting capability?
Challenges, availability, that can be kind of considered from a number of different aspects. So to put it in short, the availability starts from the person itself, of course. If you're sleeping, you're probably not very available, but you can do things to make that person available. So bypassing silence settings at the device. 4 a.m. it's not nice, but you need to do that some case. So the individuals, and of course what I mentioned during my speech was the availability of resources that can be very limited. That's one aspect. The people. The second aspect is the technology. If we are considering emergencies, there can be situations where we lose data connectivity, where we lose voice communication, where we lose short message communication, short range communication, satellite communication, what we're seeing in Ukraine. So they needed to employ satellite communication to secure that in certain areas because they lost the ground communication, at least to some extent. So what we can do in terms of the availability on that, we need to not just rely on a single point of failure, if you will, but to be able to utilize all of the available technologies. And of course, 5G and 6G are one way of addressing that, but not to rely only on that, but to employ all of the available technologies and devices.
And the last question in the set, has the war in Ukraine brought up new use cases?
Yes, definitely it has raised the kind of the need for preparedness. And the use cases they vary quite heavily from increased level of cyber threats and intentional attacks and all that to kind of putting especially the critical organizations in a position where they need to be prepared beforehand when something happens. But definitely the threat level has raised, and that has put into a lot of new use cases, or at least enforced new ones. There are refugee flows which are very extensive. There are a lot of voluntary organizations that need to coordinate a large masses of people and their operations. So it's also about helping people, but also to be prepared for these different threats.
And one more online question. How do you see Finnish technology competence and ecosystem in the global critical communications environment or competition?
It's a very good question. Finland has been considered and still is one of the superpowers in terms of technology. So it's been considered very highly robust, reliable, and people trust that quite a bit. We have been considered very kind of a non-biased and a country with kind of also regulations and legislation in place so that it enforces privacy as well. So this is very important for a lot of organizations. If you compare Finland to other countries where the authorities even have by law access to any data. So the privacy is very important, and that also brings a lot of credibility towards Finland. Of course, the current situation with Ukraine and Russia that creates certain scenarios towards Finland as well, because we do have a fairly long border between Russia. So there are more and more questions, of course, coming in that you're coming from Finland. How do you see this situation? Is it going to be a threat to get services from you? But of course, there are a lot of things in preparation, ranging from NATO to other aspects to tackle that as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. I have two questions. The first one is, does Secapp have some sort of artificial intelligence mechanism of deriving insights from previous emergency crises to prevent situations like that in the future to occur, or how to handle them better? And secondly, you mentioned of the human behavior under stressful environments to be quite uncertain. How does your platform address that particular aspect? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Very good question. So let's start from the artificial intelligence. We do have a certain degree of intelligence within the platform. Where we have employed that is more on the kind of operative actions. So when something happens, the system can react to certain responses automatically. It can escalate the emergency or the alert. It can provide additional information automatically and so forth. But what we do currently, it's mainly focused on kind of operative things. We don't yet do things with the history data. That is definitely something that we've been planning for quite some time, how we can do that. There is also kind of one aspect that we need to tackle related to that, because we've been really strict with our own policies to guarantee for the customers that we don't use their data in any of the purposes. So that need to be done on contractual wise as well, to make sure that if we're starting to analyze the data and providing suggestions to them how to improve their operations, that needs to be tackled as well. The other question with kind of human errors, of course, they still can happen. The key thing what we do is actually related to the previous question also. So the automation in the operative communication. So that's one aspect. What you can do beforehand, you can tell the platform that if this and this happens, the platform will automatically operate in a certain way. So that takes the element of human error in that situation away. But also, to put it simply, the templates which are built for different incidents within the platform, which include who will be contacted, what's the priority, what are the instructions, what needs to be done in this situation, what are the means of communication, targeting, and so forth. So when you have a lot of time to do that beforehand, so you can kind of eliminate the human errors as much as possible by doing this beforehand. And when something happens, you just say that, all right, it's this situation, and you trigger that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kari, and it seems that was all the questions. Thank you, and thank you to everyone here in the lecture hall, and thank you to the online audience, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.